this will, let's see, this is attempt number 2 to see if I'm up and running. Okay, assuming I'm up and good at this time, so I'm just gonna not waste any time and I'll just get right to it. So I've been away for a number of months from any video making at this time. I have been doing a lot of things personally. I've moved states. I've had a lot of things come up as well. Also some family stuff came up as well that I'm helping out with. So that's why there haven't been a lack of videos, but I've been trying to keep active and get back in the routine of everything again. So with that being said, my goal for this is I'll try to just be streaming at different times. I'll try to get a schedule going if I possibly can. And if you guys have questions or anything like that, this is why I'm kind of doing this, so you guys can just swing in and just, you know, ask your questions and make any recommendations, or just see how I'm kind of building this system as I go. There are going to be times where I'm going to be pausing because I'm probably thinking and just kind of planning out how I'm going to make everything. I'm trying to make this as optimized as possible, so I'm not doing a lot of jumping around. I did a little bit of prep work, so I'll go over some of that at the same time. So that way I can kind of explain some of the things I did to make this and this prototype where it is right now. As you can see, it is kind of a mess. Yes, his gun is kind of hovering above his head because I don't have any of the attachment points made to him just yet. Really, he's just very basic. As you can tell, his animations are just kind of stuttering and moving strangely because I gotta get a lot of his animations refined. Right now I've just been practicing with doing a little bit of changes in speed on the characters, and also getting prompts to show up such as that. So if I get to a certain distance, I have a line trace that shoots out, and it'll actually see what exactly the player is looking at, and it will show the name of the object that he's looking at. So from that, this is also not a single player game. This is going to be multiplayer that runs on Steam. That is my goal as well. If you can make a multiplayer game, making a single player game is just a lot easier. Your limitations, not your limitations, but like your checklist of things you have to do and have to replicate is not even anywhere near as doing it like a single player game. So if I put this to 2, you see, yes, he jumped ahead. But on the client side here, I can actually look over at the armory. There's no name showing up on the server side. It's only to the player character or the controller that has this character. So even if I go back over to the other characters, you'll see that his name will show up as well as the other players. It's bringing this name up because this is the random name generated by the Unreal Engine that's giving my characters in the game. So if I go online with this, such as playing it on Steam, those names get replaced by the Steam gamer tags. So like my gamer tag, Evil Overseer, or Overseer, I can't remember which one, gets replaced by that name. Same with any other players that are with that game. I'm just going to stick with one player for now because I just really want to get this thing up and running. My goal with this is I want to be able to get the player controller to go up to the object, see the name, and once they get to a certain distance, I want that object to give them a prompt that says, hey, hold this button down to interact or do something. So with that being said, I'll kind of run through some of the logic that I have going on for this object. As for the player, there's only just really just a line trace going out. I can kind of show where that is really quick for you guys. So let me put this down on the ground just a bit more so they're not jumping in the air. Let me make one more clone so I have a 2-player start. So if I do 2 players again, they shouldn't spawn right on top of each other. Should right next to each other, so we're good on that. Anyways, let's jump back to the controller of the player. So let me go to my world settings and find my default pawn class, because I don't want to browse through all these folders. So let's go to where we have our character actually being able to look at things. I think I have that under an aim. It's under review. Start focus player view. So okay, this is not it. Well, what this is actually, this is what controls your player name. So anytime I have a interface that's being triggered with the person that's looking around, and I can feed that to whatever I need. But basically this just makes a UI widget to pop up, and that's what's giving that name. To do this, I found a tutorial online. It was documentation. It was pretty short. It was quick. It wasn't too difficult to follow. I did do a little bit of adjustments to it, but you can find it within the Unreal Engine documentation. You can find that there. But really, I can run you through what's going on. So once the player looks at something, it's going to fire off an event. It's only going to do it once, because I think this is running every tick, because it wants to make sure that that you're checking what you're looking at. Oh, excuse me. It's only firing one time. So when this goes through, it'll do it once, just as to make sure that we're not rendering this UI widget over and over and over again, which could bog down the player's frame rate or anything like that. So what happens is I made this a custom event. If you want to make a custom event, really all you're doing, or custom function, excuse me, really you just need to right click on any of the folders in which you're storing any of your logic, and under blueprints you can make your own little blueprint function library, which is what I have up here. So what this does is I have different functions. I have one for simply fading the screens in and out between level transitions. Really all that is just a widget, and it just has an animation of a completely black screen, and then the alpha just goes down to 0, so it brings everything back. So I have one for saving games and loading games, and this is the one. This is all the logic is for making the character name come up. The widget is actually is going to be your UI interface, which is going to make the name show up. Really, it's not a huge widget to make. If you know where to make widgets, again, it's just down to user interface and a widget blueprint. So I have user name focus is what I have it called, and what this is, it's not too crazy of logic, which is good. The designer part is what kind of threw me off when I looked at the documentation. At the end of this video, I'm going to be sure to include all these links in the description, so that way you guys can go through and see see the documentation and stuff I followed along to make this if you want. So really in designer, what's happening is you have your main layout. I have a horizontal box and a text block. That's all that really consists of doing this. Your horizontal box, really there's nothing different to it. You're just kind of filling it up. Your text block is going to be into auto, and it's going to be horizontal vertical alignment with a justification over to the left side of the screen. The only logic that's actually going to be linked is going to be your text. I left this as text block, so that way if I know something isn't working or filling, then it'll change. So you can bind an event to this text block. So once you set a binding event to it, it'll take you to your graph, and you will have a function that'll be created. I renamed this function so it's just to be organized a little bit more, and all I really did was I have a name that's going to come in here. This name doesn't have anything in this widget. This name gets occupied by the variable that comes from the other actor. So that name gets occupied within that custom function. So I know I apologize if I'm jumping around a bit, but so here's our user widget, okay, for showing the name. This variable here, in order to say, so this is where our name gets occupied. Let's say we wanted to do, I don't know, a bool, and we wanted to call it somewhere in here. So just like this back in the player character, when this gets made, these objects are going to come in here and fill this information from that custom function. This character object name is going to be the object name that you have of your player. I have this being called from another blueprint. That's how it gets the player's name. The actor location is the actor where they are in the world. Not much, Aaron. Really, I'm just kind of just going over making some UI functions for showing how to get a name to show up above someone's head. I would pull up the link, but I'm going to be just running through really quickly what I did to build my little system up to do this thing here where you're walking up to something and you're just seeing that name pop up. But again, this actor location is getting where everything is. It comes over to the text face player, and that's where it creates that UI widget, which is that widget you see coming up above that object or the player, and it's going to give us our name and our actor location. Let's say you wanted to expose a function somewhere in this UI widget. Really, what you can do is display actor name. If I wanted to say I want to shoot something at this, or I look at something but I don't want to see the name, what you can do to make sure that when this function gets fired and you want that to be controlled separately from somewhere else, you can come back to your user widget and you can come down to making it editable and expose on spawn. So let's compile this, and if you look back at when this user widget gets created, now we have the ability to change whatever we want and be controlling it from somewhere else. So if you ever wonder what that expose on spawn or editable really does, that's what it is. You render to screen to world. It's actually rendering to screen. Because what it's happening is when that UI widget gets created, let me just turn that off real quick. When that the UI widget gets created, it's grabbing the actor location of the player controller. So it's finding out who is the player or who is the owner of this widget, and it's going to face that direction all the time. So it'll kind of look like it's in 3D, but it's really not. It's kind of weird to explain, but it does great. It's one less component I have to throw on every single blueprint if I want to have this function work on other characters or other objects. So I will be sure to find that link for you guys, and I'll post that for sure once this gets done recording. I don't know how long I'm going to be tonight working on this, so I'm just going to kind of go along. But that's how I kind of got some of the logic in place for the name to pop up above the objects. Alright, so let me move back over to our object. So for this object here, I just have a random static mesh I built for a scene that I never got done with because I had to end up moving to another state. So I made this blueprint a pawn. The reason I'm making it a pawn is because this is something that can be possessed and be controlled. And what I have planned is when the player ends up running up to this object and they see the name and they get closer and they get prompted, hey, hold this button to, use the armory, it'll unpossess the current player controller, and then the player controller will become that pawn. So then whatever functions or whatever controls we want to give for moving the camera around as the player's kind of just standing there and you change out their stuff, that's what the idea is behind using the pawn. So going into this blueprint here, I don't have a lot of logic added to it yet because I was really debating, did I want to show this, do I not want to? So I said I'll just do it anyway since I haven't been able to upload anything in forever. So what I have going on here is I have that same interface. Let me show you that interface really quickly. So I use a third-person character interface. Really all it is just a bunch of functions that I can call across different blueprints, and one of them being the set focus of player. So I have start and I have a stop. So when the player starts looking at this, who is this player or who is this controller? And that information can be sent to whatever blueprint that I want, as well as a event that'll get fired off. So this event will get fired off. It'll then occupy who our player character references. Again, you don't have to come over here and make a variable. If you want to, you can just you can drag this off. It'll even tell you that if we drag it off, we're making a controller blueprint reference. So we can drag that off, we can promote it to a variable, and we can then rename it, call it what we need to. So it's grabbing a player controller. So I'm going to just delete this since I've already made my player character reference. The benefit of also doing this in the very beginning when it gets fired off for the first time is that we don't have to keep on pulling this out, doing a cast to. Instead, all we have to really do is just grab our player character reference, and whatever things or variables that we've exposed from our controller, it'll know what to grab from that. So from this, I have this one as an actor for now, because the actor can be an object or a player. So for this, if you want to see if we know if it's being occupied or not, I have it twice, because when we stop looking, we want to send off an event to say, hey, clear this out to nothing, and remove that widget for showing the name of the object, which is the armory name that's popping up. And again, there's that logic over here with displaying the name location. Okay, display name location, all that is a component in the viewport that I just randomly put, because if I didn't want to use this, before I had it as this, I said get actor location, which means get this blueprint's location, and I want you to show me where that name is at that actor's location. Now the problem with that is it comes down to the bottom of the floor. Not very helpful. It doesn't look very good if you're running around and you have a bunch of people here. It can be kind of weird to look at. So using that component, it's just a random scene. It's just a utility. Just add that in, and you can really place that anywhere you want. And just get the world location of it. And as soon as you place that in with the world location, it'll show up where you place that scene location. So pretty nifty to use one of those instead. I might actually take this blueprint and it might become apparent, and then I just might child off the character customization system to be a child of this main blueprint, because I'm probably going to be writing logic that's going to do two things. One, it's going to show the name of the object. I can also do a bool to control if I want to see it or not. And then the second one will be if this object can be interacted, such as like a switch on a wall, a light, a breakable object, or lootable container. Then I want to fire off this logic up here that says, hey, make this UI and show the player that yes, you can interact with this object. So that's really it for kind of going over how to show the player the object's name. So for now, what I want to do is I want to know if this player character reference is actually getting something. So what I'm going to do is I want to test that, and I'm going to use a good old print string to do so. So let me get it, print string. Oops, not a cast to, excuse me. And I'm just going to run this right into the string connection, and it'll actually give me the name of whatever it is that's occupying this actor. Now I can do an event tick right into a print string. This would work, but what's going to happen is it's going to fill up my entire screen, and I hate looking at that because sometimes I need 5 to 10 different things I got to test to make sure things are working and firing off when they need to. To be able to see just a couple at a time or just one, usually just 0.002 works pretty well, because that's going to match your delta seconds pretty closely. So again, once I run up, there's a name. It's showing up saying that this character is looking at this object. If I walk away, it gets emptied out. So that way, that means there's no character looking at the object. Just go away. Let me make sure this works with both players. So if I have two players, I should see when I walk up, I have a client showing this guy's name, and the server character, if I walk up, should then get filled in. So two different characters are looking at this object, and it's being sent to both the server and the client. Again, I'm not going to do too much on the client side, so I just wanted to make sure that this was being filled out, so I do know this is working. So first off, I need two things to happen when I want the player to interact with an object. First, he's got to be able to see. I know he has to be close enough to the object he's going to be seeing an aim. And secondly, when he gets close enough to the object a certain distance, I want something to fire off a node or a line trace saying, hey, this character is close enough. Go ahead and let the player know to be able to interact. So that being done, I'm trying to think here what we can do. Two things. Let's go ahead and let's make sure that this is working to be is visible. I'm sure this will be working just fine as well. So it's not being shown. It is being shown. Cool. So that's working as well. Okay, so I got a little bit of an interesting runtime error coming up. It's not game breaking, but this can actually bog something down if you see something like this. So what's happening is this print string had nothing to fill out at the time when it was running, so I think if I run this again, I don't know, let me see this in the background. Yeah, see, it's running right now. You can see that the runtime errors are just filling up. As soon as I get close enough, it should stop. When I find my screen, there we go. So now if I'm looking at it, it should be stopped. Yeah. So I just want this thing not to do anything if this isn't being read. So we're going to probably need a gate to prevent that from happening. So let's get some logic control going in here. I'm going to hold down G and I'll just bring in a gate. And I'll save that for later. Okay, so actually I don't even think we'll need a gate. I think it's going to be just like this. A do once. True. Yeah. So we can use a branch and a do once to be able to control this. This is all just kind of logic flows, just like, you know, you're kind of juggling what's going to work and what isn't going to work. So let's say two things. Let's say if this player character reference is not equal to anything and is visible, true, it should do once. And if we see it, yes, I've done so many of these, I'm just getting lazy with that. If we see it, then it should just, you know, fire one time. If not, just keep on resetting this so that way it's open. This is kind of dirty right now, but, you know. So we fired it once, it should go away in like a couple seconds. Yep, so it should be only shooting off one time, and I think it's going to keep doing it. Yeah, it's doing that again. Because this branch isn't getting anything, so it's fighting with itself. Right now, I'm just going to ignore this message log. Once I get, I go back on my own time and clean this up, I'll go over it again with you guys on the next one, and I'll just kind of give you a rundown on how to clear that up so it's not a dirty code that's, you know, giving you a runtime error every tick. Okay, anyhow, so I need to make some logic that does a line trace, and I want to do a line trace from the object to the player character. So what I'm going to need is I'm going to need one of these. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to make a new function. This is probably going to be pure. What I mean by that is a lot of functions you may see may look something like this with all their logic down here. A pure function, it's simply just firing off. It's like this in a way. It's always kind of shooting on its own, pulling it from somewhere else. So let me go into here and let's just start putting our logic in. So I do know I need, that player character reference. From this, I want to find out his world location. Or get actor location, which is the same thing. And this will be the start. Let's do a line trace for object. line trace component from the static mesh, line trace by channel, line trace for objects. So our starting point, I want it to be our actual object, our mesh. So let's bring in our static mesh components. Let's get its location. Yeah, I think we'll start it from its world location since this pawn's really not going to move. It shouldn't, and if I have to make this a more flexible type of blueprint, then I will change this logic. Such as like if it's, let's say it's a moving vehicle and you want to be able to, jump on the vehicle as it goes. And I really am not sure how this is going to look, so I'm going to turn on the debug and I'm going to do it for just one frame since this is shooting off every tick and we should just see a single line. Let's go with a print string, and I just want to go ahead and do a return value, true or false. So if it's hitting this actor, then it should come back as true, hopefully. I know if I compile right now, it should give me an error because it's needing object types. So let's do a make array. This is basically saying what are the objects you want to be looking for. Well, we don't want static. We do want a pawn. And we don't have world dynamic at this time, so we really don't need that. Let me just go ahead and right click and remove that pin. So now if I compile again, that error goes away. Okay, so let's name this new function for organizational reasons. Let's do a interactive, or yeah. Might rename that. I'm not too fond of that name, but I just want to test this for right now. So if this goes off, we should see a print string and we should see a line trace, hopefully. And that's a big fat no. You know why? Because it's probably not even plugged in. So let's bring that back out. Can't interact. There's nothing coming out, so I need something. Let's make it unpure for now. I just want to see this working. So that's going off every tick, and there's a line trace going on. So it's going to world location of 0, 0, 0. Good thing is it actually is coming from the static mesh. It's coming from its origin point though. Good and bad. I just might need to make another component part and just make it from that, such as like the center point of this blueprint object. And I just saw a trace happen. Oh, there we go. So now I'm looking at it and it changed. However, it's changing from going nowhere to where we spawned, which is really awkward. I think what's going on is it's getting the first location of where our player is. So we have player character reference, and what I can do is in my player blueprint I made a actor location vector, and this gets updated every tick. So not initialize, but here. I thought it was here. Now this actor location should be updating every tick. If you wanted to, you can make your own in here and say, hey, where's this world location, get it, and then set that number. So what happens is we should be able to feed in a new endpoint for it at all times. So for player character reference, let's do a cast to our TPS custom game state. No, default pawn. That's not what I want. Okay, so this is not going well. Not fun. Alright, well, it's snapping to one location, so my tracer objects is doing that. Alright, now I'm thinking really quickly. If an actor is getting him cast to objects. Okay, so we can cast our player character from the actual inside the event graph, not within a function. My bad, that happens. So let's say this. This should be only firing one time, I think. Making a lot of this code pretty ugly right now because I'm just trying to set something up and get it working. And I'm just gonna convert this to a pure cast for now. Let's get actor location. And there's our vector. That should give us our actor location in the world every tick. So what I can do is within this, I can add a new input. And let's call this a vector, since it's world position really. And I'm going to feed that in there and go back into the function, and I'm just going to feed this right to my new endpoint. Now hopefully it'll track him. That's just my luck. So we're not getting anything. So let's do some debugging with some print strings again. It's not hitting him at all. Let's go back to the event graph and I really want to see if this is even updating his numbers. If it's not, then we need to find a way to be able to track where he's going. And it's not at all. So, I'm trying to see. You do need a decent amount of RAM space because it is rendering a lot of objects. It really depends on the kind of scene you're looking to build. I mean, if you're looking to do like a high-end looking game where you're dealing with tons of reflections and everything, yeah, you do need some RAM. I know, like my last desktop that just died, I was running on a GTX 760, and it was doing great. So I think even with a little bit lower one, you should be fine there too. I mean, I think on the Unreal Engine website, they definitely should give you information on like what's the minimum you need to run the engine. Okay, so still debugging what's going on here. So again, if I'm kind of, shambling along here, I have this open so people can ask questions if they've got any. So I'm thinking as well how to pull this actor location number. I don't think this is filling up, so that's the problem. 8 gigs of RAM. I can see what I might be coming on with my computer if you're looking for specs. So computer that I have right now is a MSI, and I think I'm running a GTX 960. So I mean, it's better than my desktop. I had to go to a laptop because I needed to take my work with me. And my desktop is down at this time. The radiator was or not the radiator, the coolant was going and leaking. Yeah, I'm running a 980 on this one. Let's see if I can find where that might be at. Nah, I'm not really seeing it. I'm gonna have to check back later, but yeah, you can just check their minimum specs and they should definitely have some answers on there. So get actor location, so maybe we can track it through that, since it is an actor and we're not getting anything. Okay. finding that player needs to find. Yeah, and this is where I usually don't record a lot of this because it's idling right now. I'm just kind of thinking, thinking of objects that I can actually just run across, like things that'll hit, things that'll find the reference to, and then find out where it is. I forgot I got to be looking at it to occupy the name. So it does get the name. It does get our initial location of where we first started looking at it. So if I move again, it clears them out, and it sends it back to a new one. So -223 for X. I think we're getting the same thing every time. Yeah. So it's only getting the initial location where this character first gets made. Sort of helpful, but not really. It's not exactly the location we want. Now, another thing I could do, I can go back to my player character and I could see where exactly I'm looking at. I've already got a lot of logic going on in here for camera center point. Okay, this is a starting point. Get player character manager, get actor location. Now, this thing does get assigned a owner when it does get made, which would be our player character. So I have a feeling it's going to do the same exact result. So we have get owning player, get local player. Let's just do get owning player for now, and it's network too, so that's good. So based on location, we can do get our actor location. And this will probably give me the same thing as we had before. Yeah, so it's the same results. Damn it. We need something that updates constantly. This gives me an update, but that vector number is not being passed constantly. Now I thought I had this being set somewhere. Just get okay, let's try this. Probably set up an event tick for that. Set. We'll get actor location. Oops. Wrong one. Actor location. I want to print string that so I can debug it. And I'm going to disable this print string so I'm not filling up my screen with a bunch of garbage. And as I'm running around, that number is now being constantly updated, which is good, especially when I go in the Z, which is upwards. So that's what I want. Cool. Now that I have a number that's being updated, which is that original vector of actor location, let's see if we can pull that again. So let's go with cast player character, make it appear, get actor location, which now this number should constantly be updated, and I can feed that in there. Let's make sure that it's actually firing off this blueprint first within the other one. Yep, so that's not being passed. So that is the problem that we're having. It's working everywhere else, it's not working here. Okay, well, I got a few things to go check up on, so I'm gonna go ahead and pause the broadcast for now, and I'll do a little bit of figuring out on this end for here, and then once I do get something that works, I'll come back and I'll give you a rundown of how I got it going. So that'll be it for now, and then I'll catch you guys in a little while. See ya.